The laptop was dead. That's what started everything. A stupid dead laptop battery and an email from a subcontractor about rebar delivery schedules. It was late October, a Thursday night, the kind where Colorado air carries that first real bite of winter. Rachel had left for her book club around 60:30, kissing my cheek and telling me not to wait up. I'd been watching football, half asleep on the couch, when I remembered Jenkins needed confirmation on the delivery window before his crew showed up at the wrong time tomorrow morning. My MacBook sat upstairs on the charger, dead as a doornail. Rachel's laptop was right there on the kitchen counter, lid closed, the power light pulsing green. I grabbed it without in. We shared everything. Bank accounts, streaming passwords, the whole married couple infrastructure. I just needed to check one email. Safari humping to her last session. I started typing Jenkins's email address, and the browser's autofill did what it always does. It started suggesting recent searches. My fingers stopped moving. I stared at the screen for what felt like an hour, but was probably 10 seconds. The suggestions stared back, symptoms of antifreeze poisoning. Hantache, death, look accidental. Life insurance, payout timeline after spouse death, ethylene glycol taste in food. Undetectable poisons, household items. My stomach didn't drop. It collapsed, like someone had reached inside my gut and yanked everything out through my spine. I sat there, the blue glow of the screen illuminating my face in the dark kitchen, and I tried to process what I was seeing. Maybe it was research for a novel she was writing, a true crime podcast she was listening to. There had to be an explanation that didn't mean what I thought it meant. But then I clicked on the browser history, and the dates told the story. The searches started 3 weeks ago, right after my symptoms began. They increased in frequency over time and were interspersed with other searches. Ones about our bank accounts, our life insurance, and vacation spots with scenic overlooks and dangerous hiking trails. I don't remember making the conscious decision, but muscle memory took over. 8 years of military police training that I'd supposedly left behind. I screenshot everything, sent the images to my phone, cleared my own digital footprint from her browser history, put the laptop back exactly where I'd found it, angled the same way, power cord arranged, just so. Then I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, watching the clock on the microwave tick toward 11. Rachel came home at 10:47. I heard her keys in the door, her heels clicking on the hardwood. She was wearing that black wrap dress I'd always liked. And when she hugged me, I caught it. Collane, not mine. Something woodsy and expensive that didn't belong anywhere near my wife's neck. How was the book? I asked, kissing her cheek. The words came out steady. I was surprised by that. Wonderful. She smiled. That smile I'd fallen in love with 5 years ago, the one with the slight upturn at the corners. The one I'd thought was only for me. We're almost finished with it. Yeah, I thought, watching her walk up the stairs. I bet you are. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I lay in bed next to her, listening to her breathe, and I tried to reconcile the woman I'd married with those search results. She shifted in her sleep, murmured something unintelligible, and rolled toward me. Her hand found my chest, resting over my heart. I wondered if she was dreaming about the insurance payout, about the life she'd have after I was gone. I kept coming back to 6 weeks earlier, mid-September, when she'd approached me about life insurance. We'd been eating dinner, her chicken piccata, which she made every other Sunday. The evening light was coming through the kitchen window. making everything look golden and warm. She'd reached across the table and taken my hand. "I've been thinking," she'd said, her eyes getting that moist, vulnerable look, "about our future, about security. We have the house and the cars, and my student loans are still hanging over us. If something happened to you," she'd trailed off, dabbing at her eye with her napkin. "I just want to know we'd be okay, that I wouldn't lose the house on top of losing you." It made sense. I was the primary earner, a project manager for a commercial construction firm, solid 6 figures, while she worked as an executive assistant at a financial services company downtown. The math was simple. "What are you thinking?" I'd asked, squeezing her hand. "Maybe increasing your policy from 500,000 to 2 million. 2 million. The number didn't register as strange at the time. I was 38, healthy, no family history of anything that might kill me young. The premiums would barely budge. "Whatever makes you feel safe," I'd said. "Let's do it." "Really?" Her face lit up like I'd just proposed all over again. "Oh, Nate, thank you. I know it seems morbid to talk about, but it means so much to know you want to take care of me, even if—" She couldn't finish the sentence. She got up, came around the table, sat in my lap, and kissed me. "I love you so much." "I love you too." Rachel handled the paperwork. She was good at that kind of thing. Detail-oriented, thorough. The new policy through Mutual Northern went active October 1st. I remember signing the forms while she watched, her hand resting on my shoulder, her thumb tracing small circles on my neck. 30 days later, she was Googling how to kill me. I spent that first sleepless night reconstructing the previous month in my head, looking for patterns I'd missed. And once I started looking, I found everywhere, the first week of October, I'd been driving down Lookout Mountain Road, the steep one with the switchbacks, where you really don't want your brakes to fail. I was coming back from a site visit in Golden, windows down, radio playing, not a care in the world. Then I touched the brake pedal going into the first curve, and my foot went straight to the floor. The next 30 seconds are burned into my memory. The guardrail rushing toward me, the screech of the emergency brake, the smell of burning rubber, and my own fear sweat. I made it to the bottom through sheer luck and instinct, pulling into a gas station with my hands shaking so bad I could barely turn off the engine. I'd taken the truck to Tyler Reeves the next day. Tyler and I had served together in the 515th Military Police Company at Fort Carson, and he'd transitioned into civilian life as a mesh-up in Colton. We still grabbed beers every couple weeks, talked about the old days. Brake lines got a puncture. Tyler had said, sliding out from under the truck. He'd shown me the spot, a small cut, almost surgical, in a spot you'd never check during routine maintenance. Weird. Almost looks deliberate. But these things happen with older vehicles. A rock could have kicked up, nicked it just right. You think so? I mean, it's possible someone messed with it. He'd laughed. But who'd want to kill you, Nate? You're the most boring guy I know. I'd laughed, too. Because he was right. I was boring. I went to work, came home, watched football, grilled on weekends. I wasn't the kind of person who had enemies. Rachel had been so concerned when I told her about it. "Oh my God, Nate, you could have been killed. Maybe we should just get you a new truck." That thing's 8 years old. "Treat yourself." I declined. I loved that truck. A week later, I was on our second-story balcony, watching the sunset paint the mountains pink and gold. Rachel came out with 2 glasses of wine, handed me one, and leaned against me while we watched the colors fade. "I love this view," she said. "I love this life we've built." "Me too." I leaned against the railing, and that's when it happened. The whole section gave way, lurching outward into empty space. For one terrifying second, I was falling. Then Rachel grabbed my shirt, hauled me backward, and we both tumbled onto the balcony deck. She was screaming, crying, hyperventilating. "Oh my God, Nate! Oh my God, I almost lost you! I almost..." She couldn't get the words out through her sobs. She held on to me like I might as she let go. The contractor came the next morning, found loose bolts, shrugged, said somebody must have forgotten to tighten them during installation. "Accidents happen. You're so lucky Rachel was there," he said. "Another second, you'd have gone right over." "Yeah," I said. Lucky. The 3rd week, I started getting sick. Headaches that felt like someone was driving nails through my temples. Nausea that hit in waves, usually after meals. Dizzy spells that made the room tilt sideways without warning. Rachel was so attentive. She made me smoothies every morning, spinach and banana and something green she said was good for immunity. Special herbal teas in the evening. Home-cooked meals she said would heal me from the inside out. "You're working too hard," she'd murmur, pressing a cold cloth to my forehead. I lay on the couch. "Your body is telling you to slow down. Let me take care of you." My doctor ran blood work. Everything came back mostly normal, except my kidney function was slightly off. Dr. Patterson frowned at the results. "It's probably nothing," she said. "Could be dehydration. Could be you've been drinking too much. Ket on alcohol. Drink more water. Come back in a month. If it gets worse, we'll run more tests." The 4th week, I noticed a pattern. At job sites, I felt fine, sharp, clear-headed. On a 2-day trip to Colorado Springs for a project meeting, I felt better than I had in weeks. But the moment I came home and started eating Rachel's food, drinking Rachel's smoothies, the symptoms returned. I tested the theory, started dumping everything she gave me down the sink when she wasn't looking, poured the smoothies into the toilet, fed the healing soups to the garbage disposal, made a show of eating, then disposed of the evidence. Within 3 days, I felt like myself again. That's when I grabbed her laptop, looking for that email about Rebar. That's when everything changed. I need to back up and tell you something about myself, something Rachel doesn't know. When she asked about my military service early in our relationship, I told her I'd spent 8 years in the army. She asked if I'd seen combat, and I said I'd been deployed twice to Afghanistan. She nodded, looked sympathetic, and didn't push for details. I think she assumed infantry. I never corrected her. The truth is, I spent those 8 years as a military police investigator. Fort Campbell, Fort Bragg, 2 deployments where I ran criminal investigations in theater. I interrogated suspected terrorists. I built cases against soldiers who'd committed everything from drug trafficking to sexual assault to murder. I was methodical, patient, the kind of investigator who'd spend 6 months on a case, if that's what it took to get it right. I left the service at 30 after my father died, wanted to be closer to my mother, wanted a normal life. I took my project management certification and got into construction. It wasn't as exciting as hunting down criminals, but it paid well and let me sleep at night. When I met Rachel 3 years later, I didn't want to be that guy who constantly brought up his military service. I wanted a fresh start, so I let her believe what she wanted to believe. Turns out that training doesn't go away. And that first morning after I found the search history, I didn't panic. I didn't confront her. I didn't call the police. I investigated. Friday morning I called in sick to work. First time in 3 years. My supervisor Dave sounded worried. "You okay, Lawson? You never miss days. Just something going around. I'll be fine by Monday." Once Rachel left for her office, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through contacts until I found Victor Slade. Victor and I had overlapped in Afghanistan. He'd been CID, Criminal Investigation Division, and we'd worked a case together involving a supply sergeant running a black market operation out of Kandahar. Victor was smart, discreet, and he owed me one. I'd kept his name out of an incident report that would have ended his career over something that wasn't his fault. He picked up on the second ring. "Nate Lawson." "Hell, been a minute. Need a favor, Vic?" "Must be serious. You never call." There was a pause. "What's going on?" "My wife is trying to kill me." Silence. I could hear traffic in the background, the sounds of the city. Then, "You got proof. I've got browser history and symptoms that match what she's been researching. Antifreeze poisoning, but I need more. Background on her. Finances. Where she's really going when she says she's at book club. Book club." "Ha!" I could hear him lighting a cigarette. Victor had never hit. "'Tis by everyone's nagging. That's always the cover story. The classics never die. Can you help? Give me everything you've got, and I'll start digging. I'm still in Tenfa, still doing private work. This is right up my alley." He paused. "I'm sorry, Nate. I know this isn't how you wanted your marriage to go. Just find me the truth. That's all I want." That afternoon, I collected a sample of Rachel's morning smoothie before dumping the rest, sealed it in a mason jar, labeled it with a date, time, and contents, and hid it in the toolbox in my truck bed. Chain of custody. I hadn't forgotten how to build a case. Saturday. I played the loving, oblivious husband. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Rachel wanted brunch at our usual spot in Lodo, so we sat at our usual table by the window, and I ate eggs Benedict while she picked at a fruit salad. The restaurant was crowded, full of young couples and families enjoying the weekend. Normal people living normal lives. She was affectionate, touchy. Her hand kept finding my arm, my shoulder, my thigh under the table. "I was thinking," she said, swirling her announcer, "about that hiking trip we mentioned a while back. Yeah, we should actually do it next month, before the real snow hits." She smiled. "All teeth, all warmth. There's this trail near Bear Lake I've always wanted to try. I read about it online. Gorgeous views. There's this spot where you can see Fernines right on the edge of these steep drop-offs. My jaw tightened for half a second before I caught myself. That sounds perfect." Rayleigh, her eyes lit up. "You'd want to do that?" "Absolutely. Let's do it. I could use a break from work, and the mountains are beautiful this time of year." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I love you. You know that. I'm so lucky to have you." "I love you too." The eagerness in her voice should have broken my heart. Instead, it just confirmed what I already in. She was planning a hiking accident. The antifreeze wasn't working fast enough, or it wasn't reliable enough. She needed a backup plan, something more traumatic, something with cliffs. Victor called Sunday afternoon. I was in the garage, pretending to organize tools, but really just waiting for his update. Got some preliminary stuff, he said. You sitting down? Just tell me. First, your wife's been withdrawing cash, 200 to 400 a week for the past 4 months. ATMs all over the city. Untraceable spending. She never mentioned that. I'm guessing she wouldn't. Here's the other thing. He paused. Her book club doesn't exist. I leaned against the workbench. What do you mean? I mean, I tracked down the 3 women she's supposedly meeting every Thursday. Sarah Malone, Melissa Rodriguez, and Patricia Williams. Sarah has never heard of your wife. Melissa met her once at a work event and hasn't talked to her since. And Patricia, she moved to Seattle 8 months ago to take care of her mother. So where is she going on Thursdays? That's the fund. I've got a contact at the phone company. Don't ask how. Pulled her location data for the last 6 weeks. Every Thursday night, she's spending 3 to 4 hours at a condo in lower downtown. Whose condo? Guy named Derek Ashford. 41 years old, financial advisor at Whitmore Partners. Ring any bells? Whitmore Partners was the firm where Rachel worked. I'd been to their Christmas party last year, shook hands with a bunch of people whose names I didn't remember. Derek Ashford might have been one of them. He's her co-worker. More than that, I think. The location data doesn't lie, Nate. She arrives around 7, leaves around 10:30, every single Thursday for the past 3 months. I thanked Victor and hung up. Then I stood in my garage for 20 minutes, staring at the wall, feeling the last of my illusions crumble into dust. It's one thing to know Jan Weiss is trying to kill you. It's another thing entirely to know she's doing it with someone else. Tuesday evening, Victor and I met at a diner in Wheat Ridge, somewhere neither of us would be recognized. He slid a manila envelope across the table while I nursed a cup of coffee that tasted like motor oil. Surveillance from yesterday and today, he said, keeping his voice low. I've got them at a restaurant in Reno on Monday, holding hands, kissing in his car. Tuesday night, she arrives at his condo at 7:14, leaves at 10:32. I opened the envelope. The images were high resolution. Victor had always been good at his job. Rachel in a red dress I didn't recognize, leaning across a table toward a man with silver, streaked hair and the kind of tan you get from expensive ski trips. Rachel with her arms around his neck in the front seat of a Mercedes. Rachel unlocking his door with her own key. I looked at the photos for exactly 30 seconds. Then I put them back in the envelope, slid it across the table, and looked up at Victor. You okay? He asked. I'm fine. I met his eyes. This isn't about being hurt anymore. This is about building a case. What else do you have? He nodded slowly, respecting the shift. I could see the concern in his face, but he was professional enough not to push. The smoothie sample. I've got a private lab that can run toxicology. They do rush jobs for einhenentlets. 72 hours for results. Do it. Already dropped it off this morning. We'll have answers by Saturday. The next 3 days were an exercise in controlled performance. I went to work. I managed my concussion cochets. I attended meetings and reviewed blueprints and solved problems. Then I came home, kissed my wife, and told her about my day. Jenkins wants to change the foundation specs again, I'd say, rolling my eyes. 3rd time this month, she'd reply. The guy doesn't know what he wants. That sounds frustrating, Rachel would say, rubbing my shoulders. You work so hard. Let me make you something to eat. I complimented her cooking and then dumped it down the disposal when she wasn't looking. Poured the smoothies down the sink, fed the healing soups to the garbage. At night, I lay next to her in bed and listened to her breathe. And I thought about how easy it would be to just wake her up and ask her why. Why the poison? Why Derek? Why me? But I knew the answer wouldn't matter. Whatever she said, tears, denials, explanations, would just be another performance, another manipulation. I'd seen it 100 times in interrogation rooms overseas. The moment a suspect realizes they're caught, they start constructing narratives, justifications, anything to make themselves the victim. I wasn't going to give her that chance. Saturday morning, 9 days after I'd found the search history, Victor's encrypted email hit my inbox. Toxicology report attached. Positive for ethylene glycol at 47 mg/dL concentration. This is antifreeze. At this dosage consumed daily would cause gradual kidney failure over 4 to 6 weeks. Death certificate would likely read acute renal failure or metabolic acidosis of unknown origin. Hard to trace, especially if no one's looking. Call me, I read it 3 times. Then I called Victor from my truck, parked in a grocery store parking lot while Rachel thought I was buying steaks for dinner. She's really doing it, I said. She's actually poisoning me. Yeah, his voice was flat, professional. She is? The concentration is consistent with what you'd get from an alternative antifreeze. Sweet taste. Hard to detect in a smoothie with enough fruit, so I go to the police. You could. But here's the thing, Nate. Right now, you've got one smoothie sample that you collected yourself in your own home, without witnesses. Chain of custody is questionable at best. Her lawyers will claim contamination. They'll say you spiked it yourself to frame her. That's insane. Welcome to criminal defense. The burden of proof is on the prosecution. And your wife, assuming she's got decent lawyers, is going to make that proof as muddy as possible. So what do? You need more. Documentation of a pattern, witnesses, something that proves this wasn't a one-time thing. He paused. And there's something else I want to look into. What? Your wife's background. You said you met her 3 years after she got out of a previous relationship. I want to know more about that relationship and about any relationships before that. I felt a chill run down my spine. You think there's something there. I think your wife is too good at this to be a first-timer. The search history, the escalating attempts, the breaks, the balcony, now the poison. This isn't amateur hour. She's methodical patient. That's not how someone acts the first time they decide to kill a spouse. The next few days, I kept up the act while Victor dug into Rachel's past. I complained about my symptoms, headaches, nausea, that persistent dizziness. Rachel was attentive, almost smothering. "Baby, you look terrible," she said one evening, pressing her palm against my forehead. "Maybe you should see a specialist. What if it's something serious?" "Maybe you're right," I said, leaning into her touch. "But let's wait until after our anniversary trip. I don't want anything to ruin that." Her hand froze for just a fraction of a second. "Anniversary trip. I was going to surprise you." I pulled up the booking confirmation on my phone. A cabin in Aspen, 5 days, just the two of us. Our 5-year anniversary deserves something special, don't you think? I watched her face cycle through emotions. Genuine surprise, then something calculating behind her eyes, then a smile that didn't quite reach all the way. "Nate, that's perfect." The cabin's renowned, Beautiful views, miles of hiking trails right out the back door. There's this overlook I read about, supposed to be incredible. It sounds wonderful. She kissed me, soft and slow. You're so thoughtful. I don't deserve you, no, I thought. You don't. 2 days later, Victor called with news that changed everything. Rachel was married before you, he said. Gregory Webb. They got married in Portland 7 years ago. I knew about the previous relationship. She said they divorced. That's what I thought too. But then I dug deeper. He paused, and I could hear him taking a long drag on a cigarette. Gregory Webb died 6 years ago, Nate. Drowning accident during a solo kayaking trip on the Columbia River. He was 34 and in excellent health. I sat down slowly on the edge of my bed. Life insurance. Sue $750,000. Rachel was the sole beneficiary. The pieces clicked into place with horrible precision. The smoothies, the balcony, the brakes. This wasn't her first time. She was a professional. There's more. Victor continued. I tracked down the detective who handled the case. She's retired now. Eleanor Park lives in Bend, Oregon. She agreed to talk to you. That night, after Rachel went to sleep, I sat in my truck in the garage with the heat running and called Eleanor Park. Her voice was rough, cigarette scarred, but sharp as a blade. Mr. Lawson, your friend, explained the situation. I have to say, when I saw Rachel's name again after all these years, my stomach dropped. You suspected her. I knew, she said flatly. Certain. But knowing and proving are two different animals. She cried at the funeral, wore all black for 3 months. She was the grieving widow, and we had nothing concrete to say otherwise. The insurance company investigated for 3 months. They brought in their own forensic accountants, their own investigators, spent more money than they probably should have, but Gregory Webb went kayaking alone like he did every other weekend. His kayak flipped in rough water. His body washed up 2 days later. There was nothing we could point to and say, this is murder. But you think it was. Eleanor was quiet for a moment. I could hear the wind outside, the creak of what might have been a porch swing. Gregory Webb was an expert kayaker. Been doing it since he was 12 years old, and that particular stretch of river, he'd run it 100 times, knew every rock, every current, every danger spot. But on that day, something made him go out when the conditions were wrong. Something made him take risks he'd never taken before. You think someone convinced him? I couldn't prove it. But yes, and here's the thing that's haunted me for 6 years, Mr. Lawson. She took a breath. Rachel was dating someone else when Gregory died, a coworker at her old job. They broke up 3 months after she got the insurance payout. The pattern was clear. Horrifyingly clear. She uses men to help her, Eleanor said. Then she discards them. That's my theory. I've never been able to prove it. But when your friend Victor called and told me what was happening to you, I knew I was right. I knew it all along. Can you help me? I'll give you everything I have. Witness statements, investigation notes, my own personal observations. Whatever helps put that woman where she belongs. I've been waiting 6 years for someone to finish what I couldn't. I had Victor shift his surveillance to Derek Ashford. The picture that emerged over the next week was somehow worse than I'd expected. Derek wasn't just Rachel's lover. He was her financial advisor. He'd been managing her accounts for 3 years, including the $750,000 from Gregory Webb's death, which had grown to nearly $80,000 and $90,000 through careful investments. But the detail that made my blood freeze came on day 15 of my investigation. Derek recently changed the beneficiary on his own life insurance policy, Victor said during our nightly call. Was who's now set to receive 1.2 million if something happens to him. Rachel, give the man a prize. Derek thought he and Rachel were partners. He thought they were going to kill me together, take my 2 million, and ride off into the sunset. He didn't realize Rachel had a pattern. He didn't realize he was next. He was the next Gregory Webb. Once I was dead and she had my money, Derek would become a liability. Eventually, she'd find a new accomplice, someone else willing to help her, someone else she could seduce and manipulate, and the cycle would continue. The man was actively helping plan my murder. But in a twisted way, he was also a victim, just too stupid to see it coming. I needed legal counsel, not just any lawyer, someone who understood unconventional situations and wouldn't flinch at what I was planning. Robert Whitfield had a reputation in Denver legal circles as a bulldog, aggressive, creative, willing to push boundaries. He'd represented a fellow veteran named Marcus Thompson 3 years earlier, a guy I'd helped when he was wrongly accused of assault by a vindictive ex-girlfriend. Marcus said Whitfield was the only reason he wasn't in prison. I called Whitfield's office, explained it was urgent, and he agreed to meet me that same afternoon. His office was in a brownstone in Capitol Hill, all dark wood and leather chairs and law books lining the walls. Whitfield himself was lit fexis heli set, with the kind of eyes that had seen everything and were surprised by nothing. Mr. Lawson, he gestured to a chair across from his massive desk. Marcus Thompson speaks highly of you, says you're the reason he's still a free man. What can I do for you? I spent the next 45 minutes ing everything out. The browser history, the poisoning, the toxicology report, the affair, Gregory Webb, Eleanor Park's suspicions, Derek Ashford's life insurance, everything. Whitfield listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment, tapping his pen against the desk. You could go to the police, he finally said. Get a detective involved, file a report, let the system work. But, and here's the problem, prosecuting a poisoning case with only one sample is hard, very hard. She'll claim contamination or setup. Her lawyers will attack the chain of custody. And right now, you're not dead. Attempted murder is harder to prove than murder, especially when the victim is sitting in my office looking healthy and alert. So what do I do? You give her enough rope to hang herself. He leaned forward, his eyes sharp. This anniversary trip to Aspen, she's planning something. An accident on a hiking trail. Probably something dramatic. Something that can't be explained away as illness or equipment failure. You need to let her commit to that plan while making sure there are witnesses when she makes her move. What kind of witnesses? Law enforcement. Someone who can testify that they observed her attempting to harm you. Someone whose word will hold up in court. I thought about that. I know someone in the Picken County Sheriff's Office. Friend of a friend. Military connection. Even better. Here's what I suggest. We talked for 2 hours. By the time I left, I had a plan. And for the first time since I'd found that browser history, I felt like I might actually survive this. That night, I started phase 2. Colorado is a one-party consent state for recording. As long as one person in a conversation knows they're being recorded, me, it's legal. And in I own home. I had every right to install cameras. Victor helped me set up the system while Rachel was at work. Hidden cameras in the living room, kitchen, and bedroom. Audio recorders in strategic locations. Everything feeding to a secure server Victor managed with automatic backups to the cloud. "This is solid equipment," Victor said, adjusting a camera hidden inside a smoke detector. "She'd have to know exactly where to look to find these." "She won't. She thinks I'm an oblivious construction worker." Victor gave me a long look. "You know, I always wondered why you never talked about your MP days. Didn't seem relevant until now." The first useful recording came 48 hours later. Rachel thought I was asleep upstairs. I'd complained of exhaustion from my illness and gone to bed early. In reality, I was wide awake, monitoring the feeds on my phone, watching my wife through a hidden camera in the living room. At 9:47 p.m., she made a call. I watched her pace in front of the couch, phone pressed to her ear, completely unaware she was being recorded. "2 more weeks," she said. Her voice was soft, intimate. The voice she used when she wanted something. "The trip to Aspen. He's already sick. It'll look like he had a medical emergency on the trail. I've got everything we need. The stuff from the hardware store. Nobody will suspect a thing." Derek's voice came through the speaker. She had him on speakerphone, probably so she could keep her hands free. "And after? What's the timeline? We wait a year, maybe 18 months, just to be safe. Then we're free. You, me and 3 million. 3 million. My $2 million policy plus Derek's 1.2 million. She was already planning to kill him too. The man she supposedly loved. The man she was conspiring with. He was just another Gregory Webb, and he didn't even know it. "I miss you," Derek said. "Thursday feels like forever away. Soon, Beatty. Soon we'll have all the time in the world." I saved the recording, encrypted it, sent copies to Victor, to my own secure cloud storage, and to Robert Whitfield's office with a timestamp and chain of custody documentation. Then I lay in the dark and waited for my wife to come upstairs, slide into bed next to me, and kiss my cheek like she always did. "How are you feeling?" she whispered. "Better," I said. "Having something to look forward to helps. I can't wait for Aspen. It's going to be perfect," she murmured against my shoulder. "I promise." The week before the Aspen trip, I met with investigator Jamie Cortez of the Picken County Sheriff's Office. Victor had made the introduction. Jamie was former Marine Corps, and the military connection opened doors. We met at a coffee shop in Denver, both of us in civilian clothes, neither of us wanting to draw attention. Jamie was younger than I'd expected, mid-30s, with the kind of watchful eyes you develop in combat zones. Victor briefed me on the situation. Shane said, keeping his voice low, "I've reviewed the recordings. This is textbook conspiracy to commit murder. Can you arrest her now?" "We could, but the DA would prefer more. Right now, we have evidence of planning, but no evidence of action. If we wait until she actually attempts something and we're there to assert, the case becomes airtight, so I'm bait." "Basically, yes." He looked uncomfortable. "Oh, I know that's not ideal. I've been bait for 6 weeks, Oeti. At least now I'm controlling the trap." I took a sip of my coffee. "What do you need from me?" "The cabin you booked." "What's the terrain like?" "An OT? 30 minutes from town. There's a hiking trail that leads to an overlook. Steep drop, maybe 200 feet. That's where she'll try something." Jane nodded. I'll have 2 deputies positioned on the ridge above the overlook. Good sight lines, binoculars, body cameras. If she makes a move, we'll see it happen. And if she doesn't, then we have the recordings and we arrest her the moment she's back in Denver. He met my eyes. Either way, Mr. Lawson, him Ife is going to prison. It's just a question of how much evidence we collect along the way. We arrived in Aspen on a Sunday afternoon. The cabin was everything the photos had promised. Rustic log exterior, modern interior with heated floors and a gourmet kitchen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking snow-capped peaks that seemed close enough to touch. Rachel gasped when we walked in. "Nate, this is incredible. You really outdid yourself. Only the best for 5 years of marriage." She wrapped her arms around me, buried her face in my chest. "I love you so much. You know that, right? No matter what happens, I love you. I love you too." That first night she cooked dinner, pasta with homemade sauce, garlic bread, a bottle of expensive Barolo she'd brought from home. I made sure she saw me eating, saw me drinking. Then I palmed the pasta into napkins, dumped the wine into a plant while she was in the bathroom, disposed of everything before she could notice. We went to bed early. She curled against me, her head on my chest, and for a moment, just a moment, I let myself remember why I'd fallen in love with her. The way she fit against me, the sound of her bracing, the smell of her hair. Then I remembered the browser history, the smoothies, Gregory Webb's body washing up on the Columbia River, the recording of her planning my death. I lay awake until dawn. Monday morning, she suggested a hike. "There's this overlook I read about," she said, spreading a trail map on the kitchen table. Her finger traced a winding path up the mountain. "About 2 hours from here. The views are supposed to be incredible, and there's this spot right at the edge where you can see the whole valley." I looked at the map. She was pointing to a location marked with a small warning symbol: caution, steep drop-off, stay on marked trail. "Sounds perfect," I said. "Let's do it." We packed light, water bottles, snacks, her phone for pictures. I wore hiking boots and a jacket with deep pockets, one of which contained a small digital recorder already running. The trail was beautiful. Early snow dusted the higher peaks, and the aspens had turned gold, their leaves trembling in the light breeze. Rachel was chatty, pointing out birds, commenting on the fall Hellas. "Look at that view," she said, stopping to take a photo. "I can't believe we've lived in Colorado for 5 years and never done this. We should get out more." "We should." She turned to me, something soft in her eyes that almost looked genuine. "After this trip, let's make a panis. More adventures, more time together. Life is too short to spend it all working. I'd like that." We hiked for 2 hours, gaining elevation, winding through forest and meadow. Finally, we emerged onto the overlook. It was everything she described. A rocky outcrop jutting over a sheer drop. The valley spreading out below like a painting. The kind of view that takes your breath away. The kind of place where accidents happen. Rachel walked to the edge, peering down. "Can you imagine falling from here? I try not to." She laughed, a light, musical sound that once made my heart skip. Now it just made my jaw tighten. "I'm here. Let's take a selfie. The light is perfect." She positioned us near the edge, too near, and held up her phone. "Smile, baby." I smiled. She took the photo, checked it, wrinkled her nose. "The angle's wrong. Let me get behind you. I want to get the whole valley in the background." I felt her move behind me. felt her hands on my shoulders, adjusting my position, turning me slightly toward the drop-off. Felt the subtle shift in her weight as she braced herself. Rachel. Her hands fans. I know about the antifreeze. Silence. The wind picked up, swirling dead leaves around our feet. I know about Derek. I know about Gregory Wed. I didn't turn around. I kept my voice calm, conversational, the way I used to in interrogation rooms with suspects who didn't know they were suspects. I have the toxicology report from the smoothie sample. 47 milligrams per deciliter of ethylene glycol. I have recordings of you and Derek planning my murder, including the one where you talked about making it look like a medical emergency on the trail. I have an affidavit from retired Detective Eleanor Park in Portland. I pointed toward the ridge to our left, and right now there are 3 law enforcement officers watching us through binoculars from that ridge. A glint of sunlight on glass confirmed it. Jamie Cortez and his deputies, right on schedule. If you push me, they see it happen. If you run, they catch you within a mile. I finally turned to face her. It's over, Rachel. What I saw wasn't the woman I'd married. The mask had slipped completely. Her eyes were flat, calculating, empty of everything I'd thought I loved. Her jaw was set, her hands clenched at her sides. You can't prove anything, she said. Her voice had changed, too. Colder, harder, all pretense of warmth gone. I can prove everything. The poison in the smoothie. Your browser history. The audio of you planning death. The pattern with your first husband. I kept my tone even. The DA in Portland is reopening Gregory's case. Eleanor Park gave them everything she had. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The wind gusted and Rachel's hair blew across her face. She didn't brush it away. Then her expression crumbled. Tear swelled up. Her lower lip trembled. And suddenly she was the grieving widow again. The vulnerable, innocent woman who couldn't possibly have done anything wrong. Nate, please. Her voice cracked beautifully. I don't know what you think you found, but it's not what it looks like. Derek manipulated me. He threatened me. He said, if I didn't help him, he'd hurt you himself. I was trying to protect you. I was. Stop. She stopped. The recording captures you giving instructions. You were in charge. You always have been. I pulled out my phone, dialed a number. Jamie, it's time. 20 minutes later, 2 Picken County deputies emerged from the tree line, hiking up the trail toward us. Rachel watched them approach with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Genuine fear mixed with something that might have been desperation. Rachel Lawson. The first deputy said, You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder in the first degree. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. I watched them cuff her, watched them lead her back down the trail. She looked back at me once, her eyes burning with hatred or desperation. I couldn't tell which anymore. I didn't look away. I wanted her to see my face, to understand that this was real, that I was real, that she'd underestimated me from the very beginning. Derek Ashford was arrested the same afternoon. Victor had coordinated with Denver PD, and they hit his condo at 4 p.m. while Rachel was being processed in Picken County. They found her bag in his closet, $50,000 in cash, fake IDs for both of them, a burner phone with 6 weeks of incriminating texts. Under interrogation, Derek folded within 3 hours. He was never a killer, just a greedy man who thought he'd found a shortcut to wealth. He gave a full confession. implicating Rachel as the mastermind. He described meetings where she'd outlined the plan. He provided dates, locations, specific conversations. He threw her under the bus so fast I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The weeks that followed the arrest were a blur of depositions, legal meetings, and an amount of paperwork that would make a bearer hat weep. Robert Whitfield worked around the clock. I watched him in action during pre-trial motions, and I understood why Marcus Thompson had trusted him with his life. The man was relentless. They're going to try to suppress the recordings. He told me during one of our strategy sessions. They'll argue that recording your own wife in your marital home violates some sacred expectation of privacy. Will that work? Not a chance. Colorado won. Party consent is clear, and the recordings were made on your property during the commission of a conspiracy to commit murder against you. Any judge worth his robe will see through that defense in about 30 seconds. He shuffled through a stack of papers. The real fight is going to be over Gregory Webb. What do you mean? Rachel's attorneys are going to argue that the Portland case is prejudicial, that it has nothing to do with what happened here, and that bringing it up is just meant to make her look bad to the jury. She killed her first husband. How is that not relevant? It shows pattern and modus operandi. I agree with you, but the rules of evidence exist to prevent unfair prejudice, and her team is going to fight tooth and nail to keep Eleanor Park off the stand. In the end, the judge ruled in our favor. Eleanor's testimony about the Gregory Webb investigation was admissible to establish pattern of behavior. Rachel's defense team looked like they'd silent lemons. The prosecution also brought in a forensic financial analyst who traced Rachel's money movements over the past 7 years. The picture that emerged was damning. Gregory Webb's the $750,000 payout, carefully invested and grown. Simultaneous cash withdrawals that matched the timeline of her affair with Derek. A paper trail that showed she'd been planning her exit strategy for months before she ever searched for antifreeze poisoning symptoms. She's been preparing for this for a long time, the analyst testified. The financial structure suggests someone who was building toward a specific goal. Derek Ashford testified on day 3. He looked like a different person from the photos Victor had taken. Pale, thin, dressed in an orange jumpsuit that made him look even more pathetic. He answered the prosecutor's questions in a flat monotone, describing how Rachel had approached him, how she'd seduced him, how she'd gradually reveal her plan. She said her husband was abusive. Derek said, not meeting anyone's eyes. She said she was trapped. She said the only way out was if something happened to him. And you believed her. I wanted to believe her. I was in love with her. Or I thought I was. Did you ever meet Mr. Lawson? Once. At a Christmas party. He seemed normal, friendly. Derek's voice cracked. I should have known something was wrong. She was too perfect, too eager. But I didn't want to see it. I watched Rachel during Derek's testimony. Her face was a mask of controlled fury. She'd trusted this man to help her commit murder, and now he was destroying her in open court. The irony wasn't lost on me. The trial began the following spring. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. The toxicology report, the audio recordings, Derek Ashford's testimony, digital forensics from her browser history and phone, Eleanor Park flying in from Oregon to describe the Gregory Webb investigation. I took the stand on the 4th day. Rachel's defense attorney tried to rattle me. implied I'd staged the poisoning to frame my wife, suggested I was a jealous husband who couldn't handle her success, hinted that my military background made me paranoid and unstable. But 8 years of military investigations had taught me how to handle hostile questioning. I answered every question directly, without emotion, sticking to facts and evidence. Rachel's defense tried to paint Derek as the mastermind. They brought in a psychologist who testified about coercive control. They presented Rachel as a frightened woman manipulated by a powerful man. The jury didn't buy it. The recordings were too clear. Her voice was too confident, too commanding. Verdict to guilty on all counts. Sentence 35 years to life. Eligible from parole in 25 years. When the judge read the sentence, Rachel didn't react. She just stared straight ahead, her face blank, as if she'd already checked out her own body. The woman who'd cried so convincingly at her first husband's funeral, who'd sobbed in my arms after saving me from the balcony, showed nothing at all. Her mother was in the courtroom. I'd never met the woman. Rachel had always said they were estranged, that her childhood had been difficult. Now I wondered how much of that was true. Mrs. Lawson, her maiden name I later learned, sat in the back row with tears streaming down her face, watching her daughter being led away in handcuffs. I felt nothing. I'd expected to feel something, triumph, maybe, or satisfaction. Satisfied. But there was just this hollow space where my marriage used to be. Tyler met me outside the courthouse. He'd been there every day of the trial, sitting in the gallery, offering silent support. "It's done," he said. "Yeah. How do you feel?" I thought about it for a long moment. Tired. Mostly just tired. Sounds fair. You want to grab a beer? Or 12? I almost laughed. Rain check. I've got about 6 months of mail to sort through, and the divorce papers need to be filed. The divorce papers. Tyler raised an eyebrow. She's going to prison for 35 years. You need divorce papers. I need everything official. I need her name off every document. I need it to be like she never existed. Tyler nodded slowly. He understood. Some wounds needed to be cauterized, not just bandaged. I sold the house. Couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts. The civil suit against her settled. Her $890,000 in investments was seized and divided between me, the Webb family, and legal fees. I donated most of my share to victim advocacy organizations. I started a foundation, named it after Gregory Webb, the man Rachel had killed 6 years before I met her. The Gregory Webb Foundation provides investigation support for suspected accidental death cases where spouses might be involved. Eleanor Park came out of retirement to work with us. She brought decades of experience and a network of contacts in law enforcement across the Pacific Northwest. We hired 2 full-time investigators, both former police detectives, both handpicked by Eleanor for their attention to detail. "This is what I should have done years ago," Eleanor told me during one of our early planning meetings. After Gregory, I couldn't stop thinking about how many other cases there might be. How many other victims who got labeled accidental because nobody dug deep enough. How many do you think there are? Honestly, more than anyone wants to admit, spousal murder is one of the most underreported crimes in America. If it looks like an accident or a medical emergency or a suicide, and the surviving spouse is crying at the funeral, most jurisdictions won't look twice. In our first year, we assisted with 7 investigations. 3 of them resulted in arrests. One was a woman in Nebraska whose husband had accidentally, drowned in their backyard pool. Another was a man in New Mexico whose wife had fallen down a flight of stairs. The third was a case in Washington state that bore such striking similarities to Gregory Webb's death that Eleanor cried when she heard about it. "We're saving lives," she said. "That's not nothing." Some days I think about what might have happened if my laptop hadn't died that night, if I'd just checked my email on my phone like a normal person. If I'd never seen those search results, I'd probably be dead by now. Buried on a mountainside in Aspen. My death ruled a tragic accident. Instead, I'm here, alive, free. I visited Rachel once, about a year after her conviction, just to see her face when I told her about the Oregon charges. Murder one for Gregory Webb. Extradition papers filed. The drive to Kion City took about 2 hours. I went alone, despite Tyler's offer to come along. This was something I needed to do by myself. The prison was exactly what you'd expect. Concrete and razor wire, and that oppressive institutional smell that seems to seep into everything. I signed in, went through security, surrendered my phone and wallet and keys. Then I sat in the visitation room at a metal table bolted to the floor and waited. She looked smaller in prison. The orange jumpsuit washed out her skin, and her hair had gone grey at the roots. No salon visits behind bars. She sat across from me with her hands folded, her eyes hollow. A ghost of the woman who'd once made me believe in love. "Why did you come?" she asked. Her voice was flat, stripped of all the music it used to have. "To tell you something." I kept my voice even, controlled. "Gregory's mother is at peace now. She knows what you did. The Portland DA has enough to charge you with first-degree murder. When Colorado is done with you, Oregon is waiting." Something flickered in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or just the last ember of the calculating mind that had orchestrated 2 murders. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she said quietly. "None of it. What was it supposed to be like? You kill me, collect the money, move on to the next victim." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You're a predator. You find targets. You manipulate them. You take everything they have. And when they're no longer useful, you dispose of them. Gregory. Me. Derek. Eventually. How many others were there before Gregory? How many did I never find out about?" She didn't answer, didn't deny it. Just stared at me with those empty eyes. "The Foundation is doing well," I continued. "The Gregory Webb Foundation. We help families investigate suspicious deaths, the kind that get written off as accidents because the surviving spouse knows how to cry and she." Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "We've already helped with 7 investigations, 3 arrests. Turns out there are a lot of people like you out there, but now there are people looking for them." Silence stretched between us. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Somewhere in the prison, a door clanged shut. "Is that all?" she finally asked. "One more thing." I leaned forward, close enough to see the lines around her eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. "You're never getting out. Not in Colorado, not in Oregon. You took everything from Gregory. You tried to take everything from me. I stood at. Now you have nothing." Her face crumbled. The mask slipped, and I saw something real underneath. Not love, not warmth, but something broken and hollow that had probably been there all along. Maybe from the beginning. Maybe from before I ever knew her. I walked out of that prison into bright sunshine. Tyler Reeves was waiting by my truck. He'd driven up after all, said he didn't want me making the return trip alone after a conversation like that. "You good?" he asked. I took a breath. Clean air, blue sky, mountains in the distance. "Yeah," I said. "I'm good." We got in the truck and drove away. I didn't look back.